Why didn't you try tracking your Colorado bull that night?
Because the best hope was that the bull would lay down. And when you get a hit on something and you don't hear it like crash down and die or watch it crash down and die, you don't want to pressure it, because if it is injured and runs off a ways and it's not being pursued, your hope is that it lays down and dies. Once you get a sense that something's not immediately mortally wounded and you start pursuing it, you will be bumping it out of its bed. And if you bump it out of its bed and scare it, it will cover a distance in minutes that it might otherwise cover in many hours. And if it's not bleeding sufficiently to follow its progress, you will lose it while it's hauling ass away from you. When if it just lays down and dies, you have a better chance of finding it, because you're at least in the right area and you haven't sent it off into the next county. So following that, once you get down and take a look and you're like, this isn't going to go well, don't pressure it. Give it time. Regardless, you shouldn't really pursue anything for an hour.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't there. You were there with, I don't know, 2? You have 3 guys with you. But what you got to remember, too, is that blood trailing, man, it is mentally and physically exhausting. If you're, like, really on a hard blood trail, 2 or 3 hours of that, I've seen it, man. People just start falling apart because you're just not used to putting that sort of effort with your, I don't know if it's your eyes and having to stare like that and look and the emotions that you're going through, but it's a lot of work. And so, you shot him towards the evening and you guys spent, I'm guessing, a couple, 3 hours on it and then decided to bail. I mean, it's a smart move to do because, like you're saying, you want to let him rest, but you get some rest yourself. And then in the morning, you're nice and fresh. And all of a sudden, those pin drops that you might have missed at night under a headlamp, the next morning you can see them and find them, and
we spent a few hours, but we didn't move 100 yards.
Yeah, there was
because there's also like all these little indicators you get. There's little indicators you get when you're on something that's got a bad hit, where you either see things, you either reconstruct things and realize that like, oh no, we're in good shape, it's gonna die. Or you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and you start getting a sense that it wasn't a mortal, that it's not mortally wounded, or there's a good strong likelihood that it's not mortally wounded. And that would go by kind of like how much blood, the patterns that the blood falls, the coloration of the blood, what might be with blood. Does the blood fall on its own, or does it only get brushed off when it brushes against branches? When it brushes against branches, how high on the branch or low on the branch is the blood? Does it look oxygenated? Does it have little chunks of muscle in it? What's the coloration of the hair where the hit was on the ground? What were the sort of mannerisms or the movements of the animal post-hit? And you get a sense that, like, yay or nay. I mean, sometimes you'll see something, might get hit by a bow, and you'll go poke your nose in there down the 10 yards down the trail, and it'll look like someone had 2 cans of red spray paint going through the woods going psh, 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 out each side. And then I'm not too worried about everybody hanging around for 3 hours waiting, because you just know what's going to be waiting for you there. You got something that's punched through both lungs, and every time its heart beats, it's shooting out an ounce of blood out of each side, and then you're like, let's go.
Someone else wants to know, aren't you afraid that scavengers or insects will damage the carcass when you leave an animal lay like that?
Absolutely. Not insects. Just rot from heat. They got all the guts in them. That stuff generates a ton of heat. Generates heat, like, even when they're dead. They got there's like big guts of wet lawn trimmings in their stomachs. It just creates heat. They rot. The first place they rot is around the ball joints on their back hams, and it just spreads from there. Yeah, man. And then not so much bugs right away, but bears, coyotes. Yeah. It's all this stuff, man. It's hard. You can't be all like rigid about it. It's like all this stuff is like, well, there's this, but then there's that. Well, there's this, but then there's that. There's this, but then there's that. And then you factor it out and try to make a call. It's never like, I know exactly what needs to be done, boys. It's more like, It's kind of what it sounds like.
Someone writes, I want to hear you discuss the efficiency and ethics around using bows and muzzleloaders.
Efficacy is lower because you can't shoot them as far, and they're less forgiving. So, but efficacy is a hard thing to talk about because there's like, I don't know, I guess like a rocket propelled grenade would have tremendous efficacy. You'd probably get like, there's probably like military weapons, I suppose, like very, very high caliber. I don't know, like truck mounted machine. I don't know. There's like ways to get efficacy that borders over into an overkill situation, or that efficacy is so high that not many people will be able to have the opportunity to go try hunting.
Yeah, too many people are too good, and if everybody's filling their tags, then a lot less people are going to get the opportunity to go hunting.
Someone could say there's great efficacy in being able to use night vision. A high-powered rifle with night vision. You can get up, get close. They don't know you're there. You get great, clean shot placement. Great efficacy. We should allow people to hunt at night with night vision because it's better efficacy. At a point, you have a finite resource, and the ability for a bunch of people to go hunting relies on the fact that not everybody's going to get one.
Feels like you just answered this, but somebody asks, why doesn't Colorado let you use a scope on your muzzleloader for that elk season?
They're just trying to, I think, my guess, they're trying to widen the gulf. They're trying to widen the gulf between firearm and muzzleloader.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to keep it a primitive weapon, which is why muzzleloader seasons came out in the first place, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? It's like they're a little bit better than a bow, but they're not a modern firearm, right?
And it gives you a chance to have more seasons, it's like you're creating opportunity.
Yeah.